Hi. What was all that about? Today, the rock star of all rock stars, James Douglas Morrison. Let's talk about Jim. All right, let's do it. So Jim was born on the 8th of December 1943 in Melbourne, Florida. I've actually been to Melbourne in Florida. I made my family take me there when I was 17, just so I could be in the same place that Jim was. And he died on the 3rd of July 1971 in Paris. Oh, we think he died. Did he? I think he did. Anyway. He was also known as the Lizard King. He was also known as Mr. Mojo Rising. He's probably the wildest and most charismatic frontman of all time. I mean, there's a few out there, but I reckon Jim took the biscuit. He's probably more popular in death than he was in life, which is quite sad. He was just, I think he was just so before his time. You know, his poetry was just phenomenal. Although I doubt he'd become the poet laureate. I can't imagine his poetry being read in the British royal household. So Jim was down at Venice Beach, 1965. He was studying at UCLA. Ray Manzarek was down at Venice Beach. Jim started, you know, putting some of his poetry to music, and Ray said, let's start a band. And he said, what should we call ourselves? And Jim said, Aldous Huxley, his book, The Doors of Perception are open if you use LSD and peyote. So Ray said, well, that's it. We're the Doors. So they recruited John Densmore on percussion and Robbie Krieger on guitar. Ray played the organ, piano, but it was mainly the organ. They were pretty much unknown. They were playing the Whiskey a Go-Go, they were playing the London Fog, but they weren't really getting anywhere. So they released Light My Fire after 2 years of really not being anywhere, and it just shot to #1 in the USA. It was just phenomenal. He, as I said, he was an avid poet. He was eccentric, but he was also highly intelligent. He was also well known for improvising his poetry when he was on stage. He'd just break out into a poem, and Ray would be in the background on the keyboard, like do 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 do, just, you know, trying to keep the show going, I guess. But I mean, thinking about it, if we saw somebody like that now, it would be phenomenal. It would be amazing. I mean, I've seen Eminem, and I literally got blown away by this guy's rapping. But to see somebody stood there, you know, just reading poetry, but to music, would just be amazing. Unfortunately, as I said before, like many celebrities, Jim did develop a alcohol addiction, which I think was partly what killed him. He had a girlfriend that he was with on and off for, God, until his death. Her name was Pamela Corson. She was a well-known heroin addict, and there was speculation that perhaps Jim had dabbled in it a little bit. I mean, their relationship was about as rock and roll as they get. If you watch the Oliver Stone movie, The Doors, Val Kilmer plays Jim, and Meg Ryan is played by... did I just say Meg Ryan's played by Pamela Corson? I meant Pamela Corson's played by Meg Ryan. And it really goes into depth. Oliver Stone, I know he's in a bit of trouble with the whole Me Too movement, but he used to make really good movies. So anyway, Jim recorded a total of 6 studio albums with the Doors. And sorry, I'm sat on my foot and it's gone dead. What's it called? I can't think of the word. Come on, help me out. They produced and released 2 more posthumously. Thank you. I thought my brain had gone AWOL then. But in 1973, they couldn't find another Jim to replace them. The poetry wasn't there. The lyrics weren't there. Robbie Krieger did do a lot of the lyrics and quite a few songs, but it just wasn't... I just don't think the recipe was there for success. So they disbanded in 73. Now, before this, in 71, Jim moved to Paris. Pamela was living there, so he went on to concentrate on his poetry and not necessarily live the rock star life. He could wander around the streets of Paris, basically, unknown. Now, he was found dead in his bathtub by Pam in 1971. Nobody really knows, what happened to Jim. French law doesn't dictate that you have to have an autopsy for an unexplained death. The guy was 27. Like, personally, I'm not a French lawmaker, but I would have said he needs an autopsy to find out what on earth happened. So he was buried in Père Lachaise in Paris, apparently in his leather pants. Other notable figures that are buried in Père Lachaise are Oscar Wilde, Edith Piaf, Sarah Bernhardt. Those are the only ones I can think of. I went there for my 18th birthday because I wanted to make a pilgrimage and go to Père Lachaise. It's a very, very, very beautiful cemetery. There's a lot of mausoleums, there's a lot of crypts, all the cobblestones, you can just get lost wandering around the cemetery. There's wild cats live there. And I went for my 18th birthday, which is in October. And it would have been towards the end of October, I think we went. I went with a friend called Joe. And there was just little flurries of snow, so it was cold. You could see your breath when you walk through the cemetery. And it was very surreal and very bizarre. And when we got to Jim's grave, we sat there and there were other people sat there. And somebody was playing the Crystal Ship on their headphones. And that's all we could hear was Jim singing whilst we were sat at his grave. It was a very, very surreal experience. He's had a number of different headstones because people keep stealing them. At the moment, it just says James Douglas Morrison, born and died. That's it. They did have a bust of him at one point, which was his head, but some dickhead trophy hunters stole it. So at the moment, that's all it says, and it's just like a grave with gravel pebbles on it. It's hard to believe that somebody that famous is actually in there. I can't think of anybody else's graves that I've been to that are that famous. I went to Sylvia Plath's grave. She was an English writer, but she's not as famous as Jim Morrison. Now, poor Pam didn't obviously deal with the death of Jim that well, and she died of a heroin overdose 3 years later. She was interred in the mausoleum in Fairhaven in California, and her family actually put on her headstone Pamela Susan Morrison, because as they saw it, they were common law man and wife. There was a bit of argy-bargying about the estate and who was going to get money. I'm not going to go into the details. It doesn't interest me. I'm just talking about the people. And when people die and there's money involved, things always get very strange and very nasty. And I think it's unnecessary, to be honest. Pam joined the 27 Club as well. She was 27. This thing is weird. Thank God I haven't joined it. I'm too old to join it now. Anyway, so in Oliver Stone's movie, as I talked about, Robbie Krieger and John Densmore made little cameo appearances in it. Ray Manzarek, as I've heard, didn't want anything to do with it. So I don't know why, but he didn't. Anyway, Ray died in 2013, so it's 7 years ago, at the age of 74. And as far as I'm aware, at this very moment in time, Robbie and John Densmore are still with us. So keep rocking up there, Jim. I'm sure you're rocking up there with my dad. Although my dad will probably be chasing Buddy Holly around, wanting to play with him. So rest in peace. I'm going to do Kurt Cobain next, guys. So I'll see you soon. Take care. Stay safe. Bye.